own daughter encouraged my wife to leave me and go to another guy. I decided to take revenge. Life is full of ups and downs, mostly the down. It's funny how men are taught to be strong and tough, and yet when you decide to unleash your toughness, society will call you a heartless man. I know a lot of people are going to judge, but I'm still going to share my story, so that no man out there will ever have to go through what I went through. I don't even know where to start my story from. My daughter encouraged my wife to divorce me and move on with her lover, but I made sure I dealt with both of them. I planned a big revenge for them. I actually got the last laugh. Can you imagine your own daughter and only child standing against you and supporting her mother to divorce you? Have you ever experienced such a horrible situation? Well, I have, and I can tell you it's a bad place to be in. But I'm glad I didn't let my wife and daughter ruin my life. Instead, I ruined theirs. I know a lot of you keypad warriors will call me a heartless man, but I honestly don't care. Wait till you experienced half of what I went through before you call me names. For the sake of privacy and my desire to not reveal my identity, I will be using fake names. My name is Stanley. I'm a 40-year-old pilot, and my wife's name is Annabelle, and she is 35 years old. Annabelle and I got married 15 years ago, and our marriage is blessed with a daughter, Stacy, who is 14 years old. Annabelle and I met 20 years ago in our first year in college. It wasn't love at first sight because Annabelle was my then-girlfriend's friend. My then-girlfriend cheated on me, not that I caught her though, it was Annabelle that told me about it. I didn't confront my then-girlfriend, I just broke up with her. That's how me and Annabelle began dating. I wanted to get back at my then-girlfriend so bad for cheating on me, so I was using Annabelle to achieve that. That was how Annabelle got pregnant in our final year in college, and I was forced to marry her. Although she claimed she lost the baby 1 month after our wedding, I never believed her. I wasn't convinced. Something tells me she was never pregnant to begin and that the whole pregnancy was a sham. I'm sure she did all that to trap me. But over the years, I grew to love her. All through our marriage, I was there for her, physically, emotionally, and in all aspects, despite my busy schedules. I made sure she never lacked anything. When she gave birth to our daughter, Stacy, I opened a big jewelry store for her. I bought most of our properties in my wife's and daughter's name, big mistake. Stacy, our daughter, was always close with Annabelle. I know a lot of people always say daughters are daddy's girls, but in my case, it wasn't. Stacy was closer to her mother than me. And no, it wasn't because I wasn't always around. Despite my busy schedules, I still made sure I had time for my family. I create time for them. We go out for fun activities almost every week, but I noticed Stacy preferred her mom's company than mine. Initially, I thought it was adolescent shenanigans, but I was wrong. I'm a loving person, but also very strict. I love my daughter so much, but I was very strict with her. I made sure she wore age-appropriate clothes, limiting her screen time so she could concentrate on her schoolwork and physical activities. But Annabelle, on the other hand, was the opposite. Annabelle single-handedly spoiled our little girl. Exposing her to a lot of things like adult magazines, unlike me, Annabelle allows her to dress how she pleases, allowing her much screen time. So she preferred her mom to me and always looked forward to days when I won't be home so she could have utmost freedom. I still don't understand why Annabelle over-pampered our daughter. She was always trying to be on her good side. Each time I questioned her on why she is spoiling Stacy too much. She always said Stacy was her only child. That was how our daughter became an unruly teenager. All through our 15 years of marriage, I never suspected Annabelle was cheating on me. In fact, we made a promise to each other 10 years ago on our anniversary that we will never cheat on each other and that we will make our marriage work. So I never imagined that Annabelle would ever cheat on me. I started noticing things were off 6 months ago, so I took a 1-month leave from work. I wanted to understand what was happening in my home, and honestly, I'm glad I listened to my instincts and took that leave. I started suspecting Annabelle 6 months ago when I returned from a trip unannounced. It was supposed to be a 1-month trip, but was cut short due to some unforeseen issues. I arrived to meet an empty home. I wanted to surprise my wife and daughter, but unfortunately, I was the one that got surprised. I didn't meet anyone at home when I arrived. I waited till in the evening before making any move because I initially thought they went out for groceries shopping or they were out for fun. After waiting for hours without any sight of them, I called Annabelle and pretended like I was still on my trip. I asked if she was at home and she said yes. I requested we do a video call because I wanted to see our daughter. She told me our daughter was already asleep in her room and she wouldn't want to disturb her. It was at that point I started suspecting her. I told her I would love to see her face as I have missed her a lot. At that point, Annabelle flared up and started questioning whether I was doubting her. She became defensive. I told her I was at home and wanted to surprise her and Stacy. It was then she told me she was at her parents' place and didn't want to bother about it. She sounded dumb. I knew she was lying, but I played along. The following morning, she came as early as 6 a.m. It was at that point my suspicion grew. We stay in Los Angeles and her parents stay in Chicago, so I was shocked at how fast she arrived the following day. She apologized for not informing me about going to her parents' place earlier, and I acted as if I was over it. I took leave of work so I could get to the bottom of everything. One day, while Annabelle was deep asleep, I looked through her phone and discovered her messages folder and WhatsApp messages were empty. I found it unbelievable because the Annabelle I know was always on her phone. Since I couldn't get anything from her phone, I hired some private detective to follow her and report to me. That was how I got to find out about the woman I was married to. The private detective always reports her movements. Every day Annabelle will dress up and tell me she was going to her jewelry store, but the private detective, she went to a hotel with proofs. She was always changing hotels every day, expensive hotels. After putting all my findings together, I discovered my beloved wife was cheating on me. Not with one person, but with numerous guys. I was shocked and hurt at first, but after some time I decided to count my losses and just move on. The worst part of this betrayal was that my little daughter Stacy was involved. She usually takes her along on most of this visit to the hotels. While she is busy in the hotels with her boyfriend, Stacy will be at the reception waiting for her. I was so mad at her for exposing our little girl to such a lifestyle at an early age, but I decided to keep calm. I wanted to have enough evidence before doing anything. I also found out she spends my money on these guys. Most of them are jobless guys roaming the street. Most of them are even young enough to be her son. I was so hurt and angry at the same time. I can't believe the woman I have done so much for would turn back to hurt me this much. It was at that point I started regretting everything. I regretted ever marrying the gold dinging. I never imagined Annabelle would pay me back like this after picking her up from poverty and paying most of her school loans to establish her and make her who she is today. I decided to pay her back in her own coin. I started plotting my revenge. One day I told Annabelle I was going on a 1-month trip. She acted sad as usual and told me she was going to miss me, but they were all lies. I left the house and checked into a hotel nearby. I asked the private detectives to continue watching the house and alert me of any suspicion. It didn't take long, guys. Update. Hi guys, I'm back to update you guys on how everything went down. 2 days after I left the house, the private detectives I hired informed me there was a young man at my home. I waited till the following day to make sure my daughter was in school before storming the house. Meanwhile, I forgot to mention to you guys that I secretly installed CCTV camera in our living room and bedroom. While in my hotel room, I was monitoring what was happening when I saw my wife and her lover were already naked and intimate. It was then I stormed the house. Annabelle was shocked when I arrived. She had to clean her eyes 3 times. Maybe she thought she was dreaming. She jumped up and started shedding crocodile tears. She told me she could explain and that I shouldn't jump to conclusions. Women are funny. She must really take me for a fool. While Annabelle was busy pleading, her lover boy quickly wore his clothes and tried to escape, but unfortunately for him, I caught him and gave him a beating he would never forget in his lifetime. As for Annabelle, I gave her 3 dirty slaps. I pushed her out and threw her things out. The only thing I was saying at that point was why. I kept asking why until she finally opened her mouth to talk. She told me it was loneliness that pushed her into having an affair since I wasn't around. She opened her stupid mouth to tell me she got bored at a point, that is why she cheated. I was perplexed, guys. Even though I was always not around, I made sure we communicated 3 times a day despite my busy schedules. I made sure to always be at home and spend time with my family whenever my job permits. I was working for her and our daughter to be comfortable, and she was busy spending the money on random guys. At that point, I didn't even know how to react. I honestly didn't know what to do. I was boiling inside, yet so calm. I didn't even know where the strength came from. I went inside, brought out all the designer clothes, shoes, and bags I bought for her and burnt everything. Even the one she bought for herself, I burnt everything to ashes. Her cry became louder when she saw her valuables burning into flames. The more she cried, the more I felt relieved. She knelt down and started pleading for mercy, that this is the first time she was cheating on me, but I told her it was late. I told her I started suspecting her from the day I came back home and she wasn't at home, but lied that she was at her parents' place in Chicago just to arrive early in the morning the following day. I told her everything from hiring private detectives to follow her around to secretly installing CCTV cameras in our living room and bedroom. She was shocked to hear all these. In fact, she was too stunned to even utter a word. I was so furious that I almost started hitting her, but I held myself back. Honestly, it hurts. How can my so-called wife be cheating and spending my hard-earned money on little boys while I'm outside hustling for our daily bread? Not just that she even had the audacity to bring one of those low-lives to our home and sleep with him on our matrimonial bed. That was the height for me. I asked her to leave and never show her face in my house ever again. She stayed outside crying and begging until our daughter Stacy arrived. She narrated everything to her, and Stacy started advising her mother to divorce me and take half of my properties so she could move on living her best life with her lover. I was surprised, guys. I couldn't believe my ears. I came out to meet them and asked her to repeat what she said, and she audibly repeated it. I was shocked to hear that from a 14-year-old. Stacy told me I never loved her and she is never free to be herself whenever I'm around. She told me she is not proud of me as a father. I was too stunned to speak. It still stings up till this day hearing that from my own child. I never knew Stacy had become that disrespectful. I always excuse her tantrums for puberty, but seeing how talked to me that day made me realize my little girl was gone. I mean, I couldn't even recognize the person that was standing in front of me talking. I couldn't believe my eyes. How can a 14-year-old be spilling such nonsense? She even went as far as telling me that I was good for nothing, and that fact that her mom deserves better and I wasn't good for her. She said I was too rigid for her liking and that I wasn't as cool as her mom. For a moment, I wanted the ground to open so it could just swallow me up. How can the daughter I love so much be talking to me in this manner? It felt ganged up. She told her mom to stop crying and just divorce me so she could continue enjoying her life with her lover. Annabelle and Stacy parked their stuff from my house and left. It was at that point I made up my mind to teach the two of them a story. The following day, I sent divorce papers through my lawyer to Annabelle. My lawyer was skeptical about the divorce because all my properties were bought in Annabelle and Stacy's name, but I assured him I had a good plan in motion. Annabelle called me after receiving the divorce papers and told me she was ready for the divorce. Soon the divorce proceedings started, and it wasn't as I anticipated, but I refused to be distracted. The whole process wasn't seamless like I had imagined, but everything was worth it as our divorce was later finalized. Annabelle got almost everything and we both got joint custody of our daughter. But I told Annabelle I wasn't interested in raising Stacy any longer since she is already doing a good job at that. The day we got divorced, Stacy was the most excited. She told me she was finally free from my unnecessary nagging. I don't blame her though, if only she knew what I had planned out for her and her mother. That is, guys. That was how I lost my family and all the things I have worked for years. After the divorce, I started with my plans to make Annabelle and Stacy cry. I made a plan with a young friend of mine, Alexander. Knowing how shameless Annabelle was, I knew she would fall for his tricks. He disguised himself as a realtor and a very rich young man. I gave him all the necessary information he needed about Annabelle, where he could meet her and how he should woo her, and as expected, Annabelle fell for his trick. They started having an affair. Annabelle fell head over heels for him because unlike her previous lover, Alexander was rich. Alexander was spending money on her, taking her shopping and going on expensive trips for 2 months. Annabelle felt safe, and at that point we struck. I drafted a business proposal about investing in real estate, which Alexander took to Annabelle. Unfortunately for us, she fell into our trap. The deal was very cheap. Only a greedy person would fall for that, and Annabelle, being Annabelle, fell for it. She put all the properties she got from me up for sale at a cheaper price, and through the help of my lawyers, I was able to purchase it without her knowing. That was how I got all my properties back for peanuts. Annabelle was desperate for money, so she sold off everything very cheap down to her jewelry store. I acquired everything and continued with my plans. So Annabelle sold off everything and gave Alexander the money. That was how she lost everything. She even borrowed some money so could make up for the amount requested for the investment. Alexander brought the money to me as agreed. I paid him off, that was it. That was the beginning of Annabelle's downfall. It was a grace-to-grace situation. That was how I got everything I lost back with even some free money. It felt good to finally give them a taste of their own medicine. That was the beginning of their nightmares. Annabelle soon became a shadow of herself. She tried calling me once and I blocked her number. Stacy also started calling me out of nowhere. This is someone that never called me before. I blocked her number also. They soon became homeless because they could no longer afford to pay for rent. Can you imagine living in a luxurious mansion to living in a rented apartment and to no longer not being able to pay rent? It was at that point Annabelle and Stacy came back to beg me. I can't still remember that day vividly. I was shocked to see them, but I wasn't surprised. They both knelt down and asked for my forgiveness, but I refused and sent them away. I decided to go into the next stage of my plans. I hacked into Annabelle's Facebook account through the help of a friend and uploaded her numerous cheating videos I was able to get from the CCTV camera I secretly installed. Our close friends and family abused her to the point she had to deactivate her social media account. Some of them who weren't aware about our divorce called to sympathize with me for marrying such a public disgrace. Honestly, I felt good subjecting her to such embarrassment. She was so ashamed she couldn't move outside for days. With her nude pictures flying online, no job, and no money to pay rent, she moved in to go squat with her friend. Not just that, I stopped giving her parents the upkeep money I usually give them every month. I stopped sponsoring the brother in Harvard, and I chased the parents out of the house I bought for them. I know a lot of you will say I'm heartless, but I don't care. Only I understand what I went through. Only I know what I invested in Annabelle and I family. How I worked my ass off so she could be comfortable. How I gave her and our daughter the very best, but what did I get in return? Betrayal. So I don't care about anything you guys have to say. I wished I listened to my parents when they asked me not to give in to pressure and marry Annabelle when she claimed she was pregnant and was pressuring me for marriage. Annabelle and her parents pressured me to the extent I had to give in and marry her despite my parents' refusal. My parents were never in support of our union, but for my sake, they had to adjust to the fact that Annabelle was my wife. Initially, I thought they were against the marriage because Annabelle wasn't in the same social class as us, but they told me there's something about Annabelle that was off, and the fact that people like her are gold diggers. I wished I listened to them honestly. My mom especially had her reservation after she saw our Annabelle was shopping for the most expensive accessories during our wedding. My parents sponsored our wedding. Annabelle took that liberty and ordered all the expensive stuff. I felt embarrassed, but I never read the meaning into it. I thought she was just excited to finally get married. The whole greediness continued into our marriage, but since I could provide, I never complained about it. Looking back right now, I think I made the most sacrifice in our marriage. Annabelle never loved me. To her, I was just a ladder she needed to get up, and I'm glad I sent her back to the slum where she belongs. It was after my divorce that I found out the truth about my then-girlfriend in college. She was my first love, my best friend, and everything. I found out she never cheated on me, and in fact, Annabelle planned the whole thing. Even the pregnancy was fake. She was never pregnant. At that point, I felt used, but I'm happy I taught her a lesson she would never forget in her lifetime. Although I found out the truth late, I'm still glad I finally got to know the truth. As for Stacy, my daughter, I couldn't just look away. She was still my daughter anyways. I took responsibility for her education, but I made sure she stayed with her mom. I withdrew her from the expensive private school she was attending and enrolled her in a public school. I wanted to teach her a lesson. I stopped giving her pocket money after my divorce with mom. I also took her phones and gadgets and told her she would only have access to those things when she finally graduates from the top of her class. I also took away all the privileges she enjoyed before. No outing, just school, no social activities, no shopping. I told her I would completely withdraw any form of support from her if I didn't see any substantial changes after 6 months. That was how I started seeing some changes in her. One day she begged me to please allow her to come and stay with me as she wasn't comfortable living in a shared apartment with her mom and her mom's friend. She told me she is not used to such a lifestyle and she is finding it hard to adjust. I told her it wasn't possible and that she would soon get used to it. It was my way of teaching her that the grass isn't always greener on the other side and that all that glitters isn't always gold. That is my story, guys. I hope someone out there learns something from my story. Don't be too soft as a man, and most importantly, avoid getting married to a gold digger as a wife. They will ruin your life. Hey Reddit, posting this on my anonymous account because my main account is followed by my wife and friends. I'm feeling utterly shaken and not sure how to process everything that's happened. I've just experienced the most shocking revelation of my life, and it's rocked the foundation of what I thought was a happy marriage. A part of me wants to believe I'm overreacting, but deep down, I can't deny what I saw. My name is Nathan, and I'm a 32-year-old guy. My wife, Samantha, is 30. We've been married for 3 years, and up until now, I thought everything was picture perfect. Samantha and I go way back. We've been together since high school. Our relationship felt like a fairy tale. Date nights, romance, a vibrant sex life. I had a well-paying job that allowed Samantha to stay at home, a choice she made as she believes in traditional gender roles. She says it's the man's job to provide. She handles the household, something which she can't even do. And I take care of the finances. But I've always had to be there to lend a hand because she always needs it. Despite my busy schedule at work, I prioritized our relationship and made sure to be present for Samantha. Admittedly, Samantha always had her challenges, but I've always turned a blind eye thinking it was just part of our journey together. Samantha's idea of traditional roles sounded good, but in reality, she hardly lifted a finger around the house. I'd come home tired from work, only to start cleaning and doing chores. It was frustrating given how busy and stressed my job kept me. Talking to her about this was like talking to a wall. Apart from the chores, Samantha had a knack for pushing people away. She was rude and would turn on friends at the drop of a hat. Her friendships never lasted, mainly because she couldn't keep up the facade for long. She also had this habit of never admitting when she was wrong. It was always someone else's fault, never hers. Living with her meant dealing with her mood swings and explosive anger. Any little thing could set her off, and it made being at home feel like walking through a minefield. I tried to overlook these issues because I loved her, but they had been eating away at me and taking a toll on my mental health. Did I also mention Samantha's weight was a constant issue, and it was a sore point in our relationship. She struggled with her weight, but her eating habits only made things worse. She would indulge in large portions of food and was always saying she wanted to start dieting but never following through. This led to her being overweight, and she would get upset with herself, blaming me or others for her appearance. She became jealous of my friendships and would isolate me from my friends, claiming they would judge her for her weight. This was far from true, but she used it as an excuse to keep me at home. When I suggested healthier habits like smaller portions or going to the gym together, she would react explosively, accusing me of finding her unattractive. It was a very frustrating cycle of her pushing me away and then blaming me for not being there for her. Another issue was navigating Samantha's insecurities. It was like walking on thin ice. I tried to boost her confidence by complimenting her regularly, but it often backfired. She would accuse me of being sarcastic or indirectly mocking her, leaving me feeling confused and hurt. On the occasions when I didn't compliment her, she would lash out, claiming I found her unattractive. Her insecurity extended to social situations too. She would refuse to join me for meals or outings and would say she was scared of being judged by others. Yet when I went out alone and returned, she would explode, accusing me of leaving her behind because I was ashamed of her. Despite these challenges, I pushed because I loved her deeply. I overlooked so much, trying to understand and support her, but now I realize how much I sacrificed and how much it cost me emotionally. Navigating Samantha's social life and health struggles was like walking through a minefield. I tried everything to help her make and maintain new friendships, but it always ended in disaster. Her friends would eventually see her true colors and cut ties with her. I even went to the extent of apologizing on her behalf to salvage her friendships, but it was futile. Whenever I attempted to help her lose weight, it felt like hitting a brick wall. Despite all my encouragement and efforts to get her to the gym, she remained resistant. Even on the rare occasions when she agreed to come with me, her lack of commitment was pretty evident. She would barely exercise and spent most of her time watching people, which literally defeats the purpose of coming to a gym in the first place. Her insecurities also led to me cutting off many of my friends. She wasn't comfortable with me having a social life outside of her, and it strained our relationship. She said if she couldn't have any friends, then I too couldn't have any. My family relationship suffered too. Samantha was always reluctant to engage with them during holidays or visits, and that led to them distancing themselves. Whenever my family would come visit, she would throw a tantrum and complain so much that it was pretty obvious she didn't want them there, so they distanced themselves. When I would go visit my family, she would refuse to come with me, and would then throw a tantrum if I insisted on going without her. It was very frustrating to see her push away people who cared about us. Her behavior towards my family especially was pretty crazy. She tried to isolate me from them, claiming that she and our future children were my only family. This created tension and further strained our relationship. Her own family had distanced themselves from her due to her behavior. Nobody wanted to talk to her. They were all either no contact or low contact. Even her mom, dad, and her siblings, but still yet she refused to take responsibility and instead blamed them for the rifts. Samantha's constant nagging about my job added to the tension. It's like she forgot that my job paid for everything, including her endless shopping sprees. When she started cheating, there were signs I should have noticed. She was always glued to her phone, laughing and chatting like she never did with me. It felt like she found more joy in her virtual life than in ours. Her excuses about being on her phone didn't add up. She'd say she was watching videos or scrolling through social media, but I knew there was more to it. I just didn't want to face the truth because I wanted to believe our marriage was solid. Looking back, I realized I should have trusted my instincts and seen through her lies. I realized how naive I was to trust her explanations blindly. It's painful to acknowledge that I ignored the signs because I wanted to believe in the facade of our perfect marriage. Despite my best efforts to connect with Samantha, it felt like hitting a brick wall. She became more distant, and no matter what I did, it seemed futile. It felt like I was living with a stranger, not the woman I had married. No matter how much I tried to overcompensate by being affectionate, attentive, and understanding, nothing seemed to bridge the growing gap between us. Our conversations became shallow and awkward. I tried everything from surprise dates to thoughtful gestures, but it was like pouring water into a leaky bucket. It was like trying to light a fire in the pouring rain. Nothing I did seemed to penetrate the wall she had built around herself. She was lost in her own world, disconnected from us. I'd suggest therapy or try to engage her in meaningful talks, but she'd either deflect or give vague responses. It was frustrating and heartbreaking that no matter how much love and effort I poured into our relationship, it couldn't fix what was already broken. Samantha had emotionally checked out. Mind you, during this time I was totally lost. I felt like I was in some messed up puzzle without a clear solution. I kept asking myself, what did I do wrong? Was it my crazy hours at work? Did I ignore her too much? It was like my brain was on a loop, replaying every detail, hoping to find the answer because I genuinely thought that I was the one at fault. I thought I had done something to Samantha, and that was what had made her so angry she had checked out of the relationship. Like I said, I tried talking to Samantha, but it was like talking to a wall. I'd spill my guts and she'd just sit there, distant and detached. I tried to have a heart-to-heart, thinking maybe we could fix things, but it only made matters worse. Then she started leaving the house a lot. She told me she wanted to take up walking and exercising because she was serious about losing weight now. At first I was happy for her, but then I realized that it was oddly very suspicious. She'd disappear for hours, claiming she was out for a walk or some exercise kick. And when I would try and check her location, she had either turned it off or it would show that she was in a particular location and wasn't moving. Then when I would try to call her, she wouldn't pick up, or she would tell me that she had just stopped to grab something real quick. I wanted to support her, but deep down I sensed something wasn't right. Her behavior got sketchier by the day. She was still always glued to her phone, but dodging my questions with weak excuses. I wanted to believe her, trust her, but my gut told me otherwise. Those long walks of hers seemed more like cover-ups, and her disappearing acts only added to my suspicions. It was a very rough ride. I felt like I was being played, but not having the proof to confront her. And every time I mustered the courage to confront Samantha, it turned into a battle of accusations. She'd flipped the script, painting me as the bad guy. Suddenly, I wasn't supportive enough. I was holding her back from becoming her best self. She claimed I was afraid of her getting attention from other guys, calling me insecure. Her favorite move was making me doubt my own sanity. Checking my location all the time? That's not normal, Nathan, she'd say with that condescending tone that I hated. It felt like I was losing grip on reality, and I started questioning if I was indeed crossing boundaries. I tried to explain that my concerns were valid, that her behavior was raising red flags, but she'd deflect everything. It was like arguing with a master manipulator. She'd twist my words, make me doubt myself, and leave me feeling like I was the one at fault. It was a mind game I couldn't win, and it left me frustrated and even more confused about what was really going on. It had been a pretty standard day at work, nothing out of the ordinary. One of my coworkers, John, suggested we grab dinner together. I was up for it, thinking it would be a nice break from the routine. Little did I know that evening would shatter my world. Before leaving for dinner, I received a text from Samantha. She mentioned she was out for a long walk, enjoying the fresh air and sunshine. That's what she called it, lol. Her message hinted that I might not find her at home when I returned, which was normal for me whenever I went out. I remember consciously deciding not to check her location this time. It felt like I was invading her privacy, and I trusted her words. Looking back, maybe I should have listened to my gut. At the restaurant, we settled into a cozy corner table, exchanging stories and catching up on work gossip. Everything seemed normal until I heard it, the laughter that instantly froze me in place. It was Samantha's laughter, unmistakably hers. That laughter so distinct and familiar. I couldn't mistake it for anyone else's. She was here in this restaurant, not on a casual walk as she had claimed. Samantha was here having a great time with some guy, completely wrapped up in their little world of jokes and shared moments. Part of me wished it was all a dream, something my mind cooked up. But life isn't that kind. There she was, oblivious to my presence, enjoying herself with someone else. I struggled with what to do. Should I confront her right there in front of everyone, or wait until we were alone? Making a scene in front of my coworkers didn't seem smart, especially since I didn't know who this guy was to her. I also didn't want to be the next hot topic at work. I watched them discreetly, trying to figure out what was going on. It quickly became clear they were more than just pals. The way they interacted, the way they touched, it was obvious they were romantically involved. It was painful. I felt betrayed, embarrassed, and infuriated. What hurt the most was knowing she used my hard-earned cash to pay for their little romantic dinner. It felt like a punch in the gut. I couldn't fathom how she could be so thoughtless. using our shared money to bankroll her dates with this guy. I was working my ass off to provide for her, and she was throwing it away at some guy. By the time I left the restaurant, I was a whirlwind of emotions. When I got home, part of me hoped she'd have some explanation, but she wasn't even home. I went to our living room and slumped on the couch, totally drained. All I wanted was for Samantha not to walk through that door tonight. I am tempted to toss her stuff out, kick her out of my life, but I know it isn't that simple. Without concrete proof, I'd be shooting myself in the foot legally. I need solid evidence of her cheating, not just suspicions. If I confront her now, it could backfire big time. The last thing I want is for her to get a good chunk of our assets in a divorce settlement because I acted rashly. The legal side of things is like a minefield. Cheating in our state is a big deal, but proving it is another story. I have to be strategic, patient, and wait for the right moment to strike. Also, I must admit, questions are racing through my mind. How did she even pull off cheating? Was she bringing guys into our home or sneaking off elsewhere? The mere thought makes my blood boil. So for now, I have to play the oblivious husband. Act like everything is normal when it is anything but. I have to pretend as if I didn't just catch her cheating on me, having dinner with some guy at a restaurant with my money. It's ironic, every time I invited her out with me, she would refuse, but there she was outside with that guy. It is eating me up inside, but I have to keep a lid on it until I have concrete evidence. That's why I have turned to Reddit. It's my only outlet, a place where I can vent without consequences and seek advice from others who might have been through similar hell. Update. Hey Reddit, it's been about 12 hours since I made that last post, and I gotta say I didn't expect it to blow up like it did. I'm kind of relieved my wife isn't into Reddit or social media. Otherwise, stumbling upon this post would have been a nightmare. She's always been against social media. That's another reason which made her sudden interest in her phone a red flag for me. Anyway, I'm grateful for all the supportive comments and DMs. It's been a real boost knowing I'm not alone in this mess. So she came back home acting distant as usual, straight to her room, glued to her phone. I'm tempted to snoop around, see if I can dig up any info on the guy she was with. But truth be told, I'm flying blind here. I don't even know his name, just his face. I might have to resort to checking her phone, although I'm not proud of it. I'm just desperate for answers at this point. I've decided to take drastic measures and install cameras throughout the house. She won't know about it. It's my insurance in case things go south. I know it sounds sneaky, but I need solid proof for the court, especially since cheating is a big deal here. It's frustrating dealing with all this deceit, but I'm trying to stay one step ahead. Thanks again for all the support and advice. I really appreciate it. I did not even expect it. I just thought this was going to be a rant and shit post that people wouldn't even interact with, so I'm genuinely surprised by the love that I'm getting on here. It's given me a sense of direction in this chaotic situation. I'll keep you all updated as things unfold. Update. Hey everyone, it's Nathan here with a quick and surprising update. So, I went ahead and checked my wife's phone like I mentioned last time. Guess what? His number was saved under his full name. Talk about bold moves, right? Maybe she thought it would throw me off if I ever decided to snoop. But hey, it made my job easier. I did a quick Facebook search using his full name, and there he was. Engaged to someone else. Yep, engaged. It adds a whole new layer of confusion to this mess. I can't wrap my head around why he'd cheat if he's already committed to someone else. So I did what any person in my shoes would do. I reached out to his fiancée. Her Facebook profile confirmed their engagement with loads of tagged posts and pictures together. I sent her a message explaining that I had something important to discuss and suggested meeting in person. Surprisingly, she accepted. I'm gearing up to meet her now, and I just wanted to keep you all in the loop. I'll be back with another update once I've spoken to her and something significant unfolds. Thanks. Update. Hey Reddit, it's Nathan back with a major update after about 2 weeks. So remember how I mentioned reaching out to Troy's fiancée and that I would update y'all on how the meeting went? Well, I decided against updating. Instead, I wanted to wait for something significant to happen before updating you all. And boy, did something significant happen. Let me start with the cameras I installed. It didn't even take 3 days for them to pay off. I discovered that my wife had been bringing Troy over to the house whenever I was out for work. Can you believe it? He acted like he owned the place, played games on my PS, slept with my wife in our bed, and disrespected me. They even had the audacity to make jokes, mocking me, and crazier still, mocking his own fiancée. It's beyond belief. Now I have all the evidence I need. I'm kicking my wife out as soon as I can. As for Troy's fiancée, thankfully, she listened to me. When I explained everything to her, she was shocked and devastated. She poured her heart out, telling me how much she loved Troy and how they had been together since high school. It was heartbreaking to hear how much she invested in their relationship, only to have it shattered. She cried a lot and I felt terrible for her. She mentioned the wedding plans and how uncertain everything was now. It turns out Troy is broke, adding insult to injury, so she had been the one paying for most of the stuff for their wedding. I tried my best to console her and we ended up bonding over the situation. She's a really nice and cool person and we decided to stay in touch. It's a really wild time for me, but at least I've made progress and found someone who understands what I've been through. Thanks for all the support and messages. It means a lot during these tough times. Update. Hey Reddit, it's Nathan back with another one of my crazy updates. So as I mentioned before, I had enough evidence of Samantha's cheating and I decided it was time to kick her out. Let me tell you, it was a wild ride, not for the faint-hearted. I initially tried to keep calm, but I knew Samantha's tendencies to throw tantrums and get aggressive. So I followed the advice of many of you and had 2 friends with me for support. She was taken aback when she saw my friends because she had successfully isolated me from most people, including them. With my friends by my side, I confronted her and demanded that she leave. Her initial reaction was disbelief, almost as if she thought it was a joke. When I got serious and mentioned Troy, her demeanor changed. Instead of remorse, she tried crocodile tears and excuses. She even had the audacity to say it was a mistake. I called out her lies, and that's when she turned angry. She started blaming me, saying Troy was exciting while I was too lovey-dovey and too romantic. Can you believe that? I never even knew that was an issue. Things escalated quickly. She refused to leave, claiming she had nowhere to go and wouldn't be homeless. I had reached my limit. I started throwing her belongings out onto the porch, loading up her clothes. She ran out to grab them, and I seized the opportunity to lock her out. The shouting and banging on the door were insane. I had to toss her shoes out the window to avoid opening the door and risking her forcing her way back in. After about half an hour of chaos, she left without her things. I was relieved to have her out, and I immediately decided to change the locks for safety. My friends were shocked at her behavior, and I was grateful for their support. I even made them dinner as a thank you. Her belongings are still on the porch, but I couldn't care less. Tomorrow I'm changing the locks to ensure she can't barge in unexpectedly. She can deal with her things. I'm done with her. On a brighter note, Troy's fiancée kicked him out too. She told me she's the leaseholder, so she had every right to do so. It's funny how both cheaters are now homeless together, trying to backtrack and save face. Pathetic, really. That's the latest update from my crazy life. Thanks to everyone for the support and advice. It's been a wild ride, but at least now I can start moving forward without Samantha's toxic presence. Update. Hey Reddit, it's been quite a journey, and I'm here with a long overdue update on what's been happening in my life since the last time I shared. To be honest, I had inwardly decided that that would be my last update, and I wasn't going to update anymore. But I recently looked back into this Reddit account, and I saw that I had been getting a lot of requests and DMs for updates on what happened. So strap in, because it's been a whirlwind. The next day I found out that Samantha had taken her belongings from the porch. I checked the cameras and she had come in the night. I still went ahead to change the locks, though. I reached out to her acquaintances and even family members, trying to find out where she was staying. It turned out she wasn't with any of them, and honestly, I stopped caring. My lawyer started working on the divorce papers, and while she continued messaging me, she refused to disclose her current location. She just kept pleading for me to take her back, but I stood my ground. Troy, her affair partner, wasn't an option either, as he had moved back in with his parents. His fiancée confirmed this to me. Samantha's refusal to answer my questions about her living situation added to the craziness. I didn't block her because I was following legal advice to keep records of our conversations. Eventually, she was served with the divorce papers, and her reaction was explosive. She screamed, cried, and left dramatic voice notes blaming me. It was clear she was struggling, and I found out she was staying at a homeless shelter. Moving forward, I focused on myself. With our joint account cleared out and legal proceedings underway, I felt liberated. I didn't even feel lonely, and I didn't even miss her because for a very long time, she had been distant from me and had been more of a roommate than even a spouse. We went to court, and the court ruling favored me thanks to the evidence I presented. She expected more but got much less, and her emotional breakdown in court didn't sway me. In fact, it was extremely satisfying to watch. I felt no pity. She had brought this upon herself. After the court session, I cut off contact and blocked her. Life without her improved significantly. I have started rebuilding my relationship with my family, and they are happy to have me back. I genuinely cannot believe I let her suppress me for so long. I have also apologized to a lot of my friends, and I have been hanging out with them a lot more. The support from everyone was invaluable, and I'm grateful for it. I've realized how much she held me back and drained me emotionally. Now I'm happier. surrounded by genuine connections and moving forward with my life. It's a fresh start, and I'm embracing it fully. Thanks again to everyone who stood by me through this journey.